I'm here alone to review The Nun II, directed by Michael Chaves. It was released on September 8th, 2023, courtesy of Warner Brothers Pictures. I know the director did The Curse of La Llarona and The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. I did rewatch the 2018 film The Nun in preparation for this one. The story. Picture it, 1956, France. A priest is murdered, and evil is spreading. The sequel to the worldwide smash hit follows Sister Irene as she once again comes face to face with Valak, the demon nun. My pull quote for this film: if you came to see more of the nun, you do get it, mainly in the form of subliminal imagery. I did not care for this one. I kind of feel the same way I felt about The Meg 2, which is all I wanted was a big shark chomping down on people. But instead they want to give us this long story involving like eco-thriller nonsense and some dinosaurs. I feel the same way about this film. We spend way too much time with Sister Irene. There's another demon that pops up in the film, a goat. And then really we only see the nun as sort of like this creepy image in the background. When we finally do get her full on, she's kind of just hovering while her minion is doing her work for her. So I guess I'm confused why they just won't give us a full-on like creature feature with the nun, because the story we did get doesn't make any sense to me. It does feel like it's taking itself very seriously. But the story. So Sister Irene, who's played by Taissa Farmiga, we see that after the first film, she has moved to a convent in Italy and has become a recluse. But one day, like the main priest guy calls her into his office and says, there have been some church officials who were murdered under very like mysterious conditions. We think an evil entity is responsible. And since you have experience, Sister Irene, with banishing a demon to hell, we want you to go investigate. At first, she's not really into it, but we see that she has a vision of Frenchie, the actor Jonas Bloquet, who was from the first movie. She has this vision or nightmare of him calling out for help. So that sort of makes her agree to go. And there's another sister at the convent named Sister Debra, played by Reid. She tags along without permission. So now these two are on a journey to go across Europe to find out what's happening to these church officials. At the same time, we see Frenchie. He's working in a convent in France as like the maintenance person. And we see that weird things are happening to him. Okay, so Reid, Sister Irene and Sister Debra end up visiting with a librarian. And she explains that this demon is trying to get a hold of the eyes of Saint Lucy, like this artifact that has some eyes in it. And she gives the backstory, and she says that you need to go to this convent in France somewhere to find the artifact. So they get there and they see that's the same convent Frenchie works in. So Sister Irene puts two and two together, realizes that at the end of the first nun, when she banishes the demon Valak, the nun, using the blood of Jesus, that demon actually transferred into Frenchie's body. So it's Frenchie that's been going around killing these church officials. But now he's at this convent, they're there, they see it's him. So the final act of the film is Sister Irene and Sister Debra trying to find the artifact, the eyes of St. Lucy, in this church or convent, and Frenchie causing havoc because the nun, that demon, is possessing him. They do end up finding the artifact. They use it to try to stop Frenchie, but it actually backfires on them because Frenchie gets a hold of the artifact and uses it to attempt to kill Sister Irene. But we find out that St. Lucy was this woman who I guess was suspected of being like a witch or something, and they tried to burn her and she wouldn't burn. So of course they thought she was evil, and they took her eyes out and put them in this little container. And we find out that when we see that Sister Irene doesn't burn, that she's a descendant of St. Lucy. So she uses her love and good memories to destroy the nun. Like she literally sees that there's like wine in the portion of the monastery they're in, and she turns that wine into blood, and that blood banishes the nun back to hell. Which I was confused by, like, is this supposed to be like Jesus's blood? I don't know. But that's the end. And then in the post-credit scene, we see that Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are, they get a phone call asking for help. So I'm assuming there will be another Conjuring movie. Okay, let me go through my notes. The one nice thing about this movie is the cinematography. I did think it looked good. And I thought the opening, we had a strong start because we see one of the church officials getting killed, and it's this priest, and he's with this young boy, and they're like doing their duties of the day, and some weird stuff is happening with the boy in the basement, and the demon like lifts the priest into the air and lights him on fire. But the little boy named Jacques, he plays a part later in the movie because we find out, or Sister Irene speculates, that the demon didn't kill the boy because he was holding the priest's rosary beads, which is confusing to me because if that's all it took to stop the demon, I don't know why we went through all this rigmarole. A funny scene is earlier on in the film, we see a group of nuns, the nuns who Sister Irene works with. They're all telling like these pretty like graphic, scary stories while they're peeling potatoes. So the imagery of like a bunch of nuns gossiping over potato peeling was funny. I like Storm Reid. I don't think her character had anything to do, and her her style was very different from Sister Irene. And the way Storm Reid was acting was how I felt about this movie. Like kind of bored, and she has this look on her face like everyone's stupid. So I thought that was appropriate. So at the convent Frenchie works in, there's this little girl named, God, what is her name? Sophie. And she's the daughter of one of the teachers at the convent, but she's also like, she likes Frenchie, and Frenchie's very kind to her. But we see that she has like there are these bullies at school who just pick on her. And at a point, so in the monastery, there's a chapel portion that's been like condemned. And this stupid little girl lets those bullies convince her to go in there. And that's when we first see that there's like an evil entity in the chapel. And there's a stained glass window with a picture of a goat in it. And apparently the goat's eyes will like possess you. But really, the goat's eyes, which are red, I guess when the sunlight hits it at the right spot, it creates a laser beam to like the floor. And that's how Sister Irene discovers where the artifact, the Eyes of St. Lucy, is. So wherever the laser hit, she started digging and she found it. But we see that goat, once the laser beams pop out, that goat disappears and turns into an actual, like, demon. And I thought that was probably the creepiest part of the movie, is watching this demon run around the house. And I think I wish, just getting to what I thought would have been the better story, I don't understand. First of all, I don't think Taissa Farmiga as Sister Irene, I don't think that actor or that character is compelling enough to carry an entire movie. I don't know why a movie called The Nun is not more about the nun. And I wish we would have just had like an all-out, like Freddy versus Jason or Alien versus Predator situation where we have the nun battling another demon, and then we can have the sister sort of in the middle trying to figure it out. But it was pretty dry up until the final act when there's action and fighting. Which, I don't know, I guess for people who are creeped out by possession and like faith-based type things, maybe this movie is more effective, but for me, I needed a little bit more. So the best scene of the film, I think, is there's a moment when Sister Irene is like roaming the streets of this town where the convent is, and she comes upon a magazine stand. And once again, we're just getting these like subliminal images of the nun, but I thought this one was the most effective because we get this beautiful shot of a magazine stand. The wind starts blowing, the pages start turning, and ultimately the pages are arranged in a way that it looks like the nun. I thought that was very beautifully shot. It's a shame it's wasted on such a silly story. So at the end, when Frenchie is chasing everyone, and now, because I thought a funny part is that Frenchie, as this person possessed by the demon, he is whooping those sisters' asses. He is flinging Sister Irene and Sister Debra around like rag dolls, punching them like in the face. Somehow they still are able to get up. But it's during that melee that the little girl Sophie gets a hold of the artifact. So now Frenchie's attention is on her. And there's a point where she is dangling from like a high level with one hand because her other hand is holding the artifact. And Frenchie, this grown-ass man, is holding on to her. I don't know how that little girl was able to support both of their weight with one hand. I was confused by what the artifact would do because we're told that the demon wants it because the demon knows it'll banish it back to hell. But then when the demon's presented with it, it doesn't do anything. And then this idea that because Sister Irene is a descendant of St. Lucy, she has the power to banish it, even though we have St. Lucy's actual body parts in a container and that didn't do it. I'm also confused again, like, because in the first movie, the demon is banished by using Jesus's blood. So then it makes me think that the blood that Sister Irene made from the wine is supposed to be like Jesus's blood. That seems like a stretch. I'm not surprised I didn't care for this movie because I didn't like the first one. I do think it's better than the first one. I thought the first hour was a little dry, but the final act does make up for it somewhat. That being said, I would give this film 2 out of 5. Hit the thanks button, listen to our podcast. Bye.